the earth they whisper and shout. In the
Was the Moonshae Ed created back when you were 8 at the same time, or was it a different time?
The Moonshaes was 1 year in, so I would have been 6.
6 years
So
old,
what
he
it would-
wrote the Moonshaes. He
It would have
created
been
the
like
Moonshaes.
1966 or so.
So you're 7 then, right? Maybe.
When all of you here were
Well, they
probably
weren't
not
born, but I was.
probably not twinkles. Yeah, you were.
I'm only little, just under 4 years behind you. So don't make yourself
Okay.
sound ancient.
All right. Okay.
I was getting close.
Yeah.
There he is.
I was that twinkle. I was in the twinkle stage. I hadn't progressed
you're
the
the
bun in the oven yet.
Oh, okay. Well,
You were
soon you will be the
preheated.
pension stage, and it will be so much better. Yeah.
I don't know if Curry's going to make it or not, so we'll see.
I think we should start, and if Curry weighs in, Curry weighs in. How's that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And by the magic of your editing chip chop software, you can make it look like he was here all the time.
I can. I'll just get a little stick figure and put him in the corner.
Yeah.
Magic. Well, welcome guys to this our humble little podcast. We already know Eric, but just Savannah, you really haven't introduced yourself to, especially the people who watch this, the whole 5 or 6 people that subscribe to it. So,
Well, I'm Savannah Houston-McIntyre. I have been working with Baldwin Games for 6 years now. First under Eric here with Rising Shadows. But I was co-coordinator on Malefic Delusions, which was the last season, and am the story coordinator on Promise of Blossoms, which is this year's story of Moonshaes.
oh, nice.
Ooh,
Are we going to get to see some of this at Candlekeep, Eric?
Oh, yes.
I don't know.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, okay. Before we go any further, because I know who I am. Jeff knows who he is, and Eric knows who he is. But we may do introductions. Who knows? I want to know what a malefic delusion is. It sounds like something that I need medicine for, or
Or at least a good, strong unguent.
or a quarantine, or what's a malefic delusion?
Well, just that. Everyone did need a cure pretty much. So the season accumulated with Urfania, kind of attacking Carador and twisting it with her fey magic, and it was pretty crazy. And
So
the whole spires came alive. It's just a grand delusion that everyone shared and had to defeat.
those who are not hip deep in Moonshaes lore, Urfania is a mist hag who rules Winterglen, is it, Savannah?
That's correct.
Which is the unseelie balance to Carador, which is the Seelie realm, or the Seelie court in Serafall. So they're kind of equal to each other. And I believe we have laid her out to be a mistress of illusion, like very powerful illusions going back to first, second edition, where illusion was the only subclass of wizards at the time and had their own spell list.
I remember that.
So I realize that players in this campaign may not know limits of powers, and you may want to keep things mysterious and therefore awesome. But just between you, me, and the internet, we're all private here. Yeah. So if this hag traveled off the Moonshaes and was working a grand illusion, is her fey magic as powerful, say, on the mainland, or on Ruathan, or on Mintar, or is it strongly place-based?
Well, that's a good question.
I could venture
all of them.
I think Eric's got ideas.
Not so much.
You introduced the idea of all those fey crossroads. where
Yes.
places are stronger for fairy. I would think places like those, she would have more power.
Mm.
And so it'd lead to rumors of haunted forests and misty woodlands and or even boggy swamps where the "don't follow the lights" kind of things would go down. Um, I guess it really depends upon what the DM wants to do in their campaign ultimately. If they want her to have that power, she has that power. We could definitely justify it.
Got it. Okay, so she could be a powerhouse anywhere on Toril, but until she's used to the ground the locale she's on, like if she's in the middle of Anorok and the southern hot Anorok with sand dunes and howling sandstorms, and she's going boggy forests, folks, boggy forest, it may not work as well as if she's in someplace that has a forest already, right?
Well, she's really, fairies are really good at adapting. So if she's in a desert, I would make her like mistress of mirages. And she's constantly trying to lure people away from the trade routes they have across the southern Amarok with, ooh, there's a beautiful, lush green oasis just right over here. Just have to keep following it a little bit further.
Okay, so
So
got it. Yeah.
if she's just going to, she would just twist to fit whatever system or whatever setting she's in.
Okay, and I sense already I may be leading us down the garden path because we're talking about a big baddie here, and you may not want to like it's sort of like going around the back of the theater, ripping open the curtain and where everybody's changing in the dressing room, going, "See, maybe we might want to start at the beginning and like back to the mystery and so on." Okay, so being as I've ruined that already, where are we going? Where are you going next? Like moving beyond these malefic delusions. If you're living in the Moonshaes, not necessarily an adventure, but you're just living there, what's happening?
Well, this coming season, The Promise of Blossoms is much more lighthearted, and focuses on a wedding.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
weddings. Nothing could possibly go wrong at a wedding.
What goes wrong at weddings ever?
nothing.
Well, being as Eric and I just, yeah, uh, we just did a wedding in which two little boys offered roses, and you had to make death magic saves when you took one.
That was deeply uncomfortable, I might add.
Yes.
So uncomfortable. It's like, ah.
Yeah. And I was silly enough to answer a question because, Pride Month and all that stuff. And people were asking about tiefling weddings today. And silly me, I answered. And now I have something like 80 wedding questions sitting in my inboxes. Everybody goes, yes, but what if I'm a one-legged mist giant? And what if, and I want to marry a pixie? What are the, what are the rituals there? It's like, no.
Oh, the woes of the world sage.
Yeah. So, yeah, weddings are okay. So, but this is lighthearted, and the moment you said lighthearted, I'm watching Eric because I need a tell because you're smiling and delivering it confidently, and I'm going okay, and I look at Eric and he's doing the thing with his fingers and being all gleeful, and I'm going, got it.
Well, does the wedding include the High Fae Lord Aright? Because there might be magic afoot there.
Well, yeah. I mean, what even someone who is not familiar with the Moonshaes or Baldwin Games, what they've been doing, if you go to your Moonshaes landing page, there are these two ladies looking at each other on either side, and one of them has the point of a bladed weapon sticking out of her chest. Now, that might be interesting to look at. But it does sort of suggest there's magic afoot all the time because no magic, she wouldn't be standing there glaring at somebody. She'd be on her nose, with blood going every which way. So obviously there's magic. So um
Yeah.
This is a good one.
I'm trying to play the naive innocent here. So is that a fae? No, there you go. How's that for a setup? Did I do that elegantly enough?
This just raised a good point, Savannah. We should probably update our two people glaring at each other over the moon wells.
Yes. See,
Maybe.
that's from the Rising Shadows storyline,
Yes.
which if people haven't checked it out yet, it is epic and fantastic, and I can't praise it highly enough.
I hope we did
Um,
Doug Niles proud.
Yes,
Because
and we hope to have Doug on, and we hope to have Doug on sometime in the future. Okay, so let me just again play devil's advocate. If I am coming to this now, I know that if I'm going to a convention, you want me to play what you're running right now for obvious reasons.
mhm.
If I'm not going to a convention because I am one of those, I don't know, 90% of gamers who don't have the money to travel, or there's an Atlantic or Pacific Ocean in the way, or some small impediment like a job or something in their way, and they can't come to a convention, should they start with Rising Shadows? Should they start back at the beginning, or can they jump in anywhere?
So I would say they can jump in anywhere, but I think for the players who have the time to do consecutive play, even if it's just a selection of storylines from Rising Shadows and then proceeding from there, um, there'll be a really big payoff from going that route. But all of our adventures have primers that catch players up on what's happening and what they need to know. So you can really jump in anywhere.
and the current adventures do not presume knowledge of the earlier adventures.
Oh, good.
And if it becomes important to the adventure, which we try to keep to a dull roar, then it is introduced as organically as possible to the players, where through either checks or a helpful NPC that's going to summarize it in very short fashion to get players into the action. Like Promise of Blossom is something that we've been building towards through 3 different seasons. Now, first Rising Shadows, then Malefic Delusions, now Promise of Blossoms, where slowly we've been moving towards it, which is a great wedding between the House of Kendrick, which is the ruling house of the Moonshaes, and High Lord Wraith, who is the current ruler of Seraphal, which is the Eladrin realm on Gwyneth. And this entire, since it's a royal wedding, the entire plot line is going to be focused on how do you manage that from a societal level and also from a personal level, because there's so many different interests. Like, how are the dwarves going to handle this? How are the fae handling this? How are the folk handling this? Everyone is going to get invited
How
to
are the
attend this.
Northmen handling this?
That is a couple of our adventures.
Not very
for how
well.
Drunken Fist is the first one, but also it's revealing the schism between the Narhelmlanders, the people from Narhelm, which is the northern part of Alaron, and the rest of the Northlanders, which we saw in Doug Niles' novels, that there was kind of a split between them. And we've kind of pushed that further apart because, and so in that, like, no, the Northlander culture is not monolithic.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
so, and also it's been hundreds of years they've been living there. And so certain of Northlander Jarls have like integrated more with the Moonshaes than the more remote ones.
Cool.
And then we also have the different groups of folk, one from Moray and then one from Alaron, and how they're going to interact with all this. So there's a lot of politics, personalities, and pests that are going to be cropping up.
This warms the cockles of my heart. Well, because I had to do Halls of the High King years and years and years ago. And by years and years and years ago, I mean before the internet. So word count was word count. There were no pixels. You couldn't just add something. There were no web enhancements. If you were really lucky and you twisted the right arms, that involved begging, I have to tell you. You might get a 1-page photocopied both sides of an 8.5 by 11 page handout at Gen Con, you know, at a panel to say, oh, and here's the bit I couldn't fit in, or something like that. But aside from that, there was no extra. And I was given this design brief, and they said, here's your page count, and here's what you have to do, and here's what you have to put into it. Oh, and then halfway through, they said, hey, would you like make it into a campaign module? And I said, in the 10 days I have left, sure, no problem. But acutely aware that I didn't have the space to make the Moonshaes come alive because I had to have an adventure in the foreground. So you have the usual stuff of, you have to give your player characters something to do. They have to fight and all that stuff. And the closest I could come to making the Moonshaes come alive was have appendices at the end that did moonwells and stuff. And foreground action, like on the ship, when they had to have a fight on the ship on the way there, it's going to rain. It's going to be in the middle of a storm. So I'm going to tell you, hey, you live in a place that has weather. Yeah, it's alive. But I had no more space than that. And the lovely thing that you guys have is time and space to really make the Moonshaes come alive. So tell me your secrets. How are you making the Moonshaes come alive? I mean, okay, I don't want to ruin the future by asking you to spill secrets. I mean, when you approach it as a design decision, how do you make sure you're ticking all the boxes in your own mind to make this place seem like a real place you could live in, as opposed to, here's an adventure, the world hangs in the balance, oops, finished, good, did you have your feast? Did you stuff the cake in your mouth? Good, new adventure. The world hangs in the balance. To avoid that, there has to be a way. Okay, if you live in this place, if say you're farming, say, or you're a woodcutter, or you're gleaning, forest mushrooms to eat, whatever. How do you make the place feel alive?
So I think for me at least, I like to address it one episode at a time. So the big world-shattering threat is like a current that runs through them, but it isn't necessarily the focus of every single episode. And in each shot, we have something that deals with the larger issue, but also something more personal related to the area they're in that has been drastically affected by that. Um, and just sprinkling in the little bits and pieces. Eric likes to tell me that my way of going about an adventure is very flowery. He used to tell me when he was trying to rein back my words. I love episodes that focus on just one specific little town, their lives, what's going on there, which is why last season we started with a murder mystery in Dynagal. And just focused on the recovery and what was going on from Rising Shadows, and trying to build up in a very natural way how people had recovered from the first world-shattering event, and keeping it grounded, letting the players say, oh yes, what have I done in the last 5 years? Why am I in this area? Always giving them that agency to build why they're there, if they've accepted to be there, or if they've been pulled in by their leaders. Yeah, I like approaching it one bit at a time. I've probably prattled on too much. If you want to pitch in, Eric.
I didn't want to step on any toes, and because Savannah's a fantastic creator. I love working with her. Flowery prose be danged, but I just have to get it down to 3.5 hours event for Bowman Games, and her stuff runs 5 hours or 6, which is a challenge I am well aware of trying to ratchet it down. To make it an appealing place to live, Consistency and repetition would be two of the things I'm looking at. By repetition, I mean have the same NPCs show up again and again. Once you introduce the inn, that inn is now there. It's the inn that everyone knows. And I try to urge the writers to have like one unique thing about this inn, because that's what the players are going to remember. If they can get one unique thing about this particular inn. And sometimes what caught people was one inn had a house harp, because the harps were too big to carry around. So they had one, instead of like a piano in the lobby of a hotel, they had their own private, their house harp that any bard that wanted to could go make use of. And even just that little detail is enough to stick with people and make them remember it.
Is it like a hotel piano? It plays by itself in the middle of the night?
And probably not. It might look like it, but if you leave the saucer of milk out, someone might stop by, which is another system of constantly referencing the fairy nature of Moonshaes. That, yeah, it's not, we don't really have a lot of ghosts and spirits, but we do have a lot of fairies. And so if the piano is playing by itself, it's probably a fairy.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's trouble in the house, it's you probably offended your fairy, and you need to go make peace with the fairy.
Mm-hmm.
And with the with a lot, we have a lot of the NPCs repeating throughout all of Rising Shadows, and now that is where we first met both Lord Wraith and Princess Terralyn, who are the main characters of our Promise of Blossom coming up. They both got a big trilogy, Moon 14, where it was the party were sent to Serafall, and we had to introduce all of Serafall, and then just slowly putting the bricks in more and more as people learn more about them. And as they got to know about these NPCs, they started caring about them more. And that worked really well for our favor. And then they also get mad if you burn down that inn that everyone knows.
Yeah. Okay. So knowing the realms as I know the realms, yeah, I would be absolutely astonished if all of Serafall was monolithically in favor of this wedding. Or yeah, exactly. Or the other side of the happy couple. You know, if all the folk were monolith. So I take it to delve into that would be giving too much away. So let me step back and look in the other direction. Over the previous Baldman Games campaigns, over the last few seasons, how much infighting, schisms, friction have there been? Let's go with the Fae.
Misty hollow where shadows dance, spirits of yore weave their timeless trance. Roots entwine like stories of forgotten wars, songs of the ancients, seers and old lore. Oh, whispers.
La 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 la.